there's no price can be put on this. You
No.
know, in my career for years, when I see somebody leaving my salon and I have given them back the confidence to go back out there again, to, you know, just feel themselves again, to get this confidence back and to really, you know, embrace who they were before they started to lose their hair. It's just so rewarding, Kim, really rewarding.
Hello and welcome to the Driven by It's For Women podcast. I'm your host Kim Kelly and I'm here with award-winning hair loss specialist Bridgeen King.
Hello, Kim, and thank you for inviting me.
Hello there, you're very welcome to the podcast, Bridgeen. Now, the best way for me to introduce you to the listeners is not by telling them how many industry awards you have won, because there's loads, or the fact that you are considered Ireland's queen of hair loss because of the hundreds of women who you've worked with. But actually, more importantly, it's what people say about you and it's how you make people feel. This is what one woman told me. Bridgeen changed my life. She saved me. I was absolutely desperate and she gave me back my life. It really can't be understated that the work you do is life-changing. Now, I have known you and your work for many years, and each time we meet, it seems that the incidence of hair loss has increased. In fact, the latest research shows that Belfast has the highest rate of hair loss in the UK, with 62% of people affected. Why do you think this is, Bridgeen?
So, Kim, I have been doing this work a long time, as you say, and over the past few years, I have noticed a massive increase in hair loss. And I think this is due to the fact of it being, one, a bit of a taboo subject and people really not speaking out about it and not sourcing the help for it. COVID played a massive part in this in the past couple of years, and a lot of people's immune systems were broken down, and this did affect the hair. It's also a lot of stress. It is very internal. Hair loss is very, very internal. And unless you get the right help and seek the right advice, this condition can deteriorate.
So there are many types of hair loss. Now, often we think of hair loss, people who have maybe experienced treatment for cancer, they would lose their hair. What about things like alopecia?
So alopecia is quite autoimmune. So that is an autoimmune disease, and a lot of young girls, men, women with alopecia really try to suffer in silence with this. But I think over the past couple of years, wigs and hair loss services have now become very, very much, they are out there, and wigs are more now very much like a fashion accessory. So young girls going through alopecia really can embrace this journey and really can sort out some stunning pieces to wear.
Because losing your hair, I mean, it's not just hair. I mean, I think there is this tendency to think, oh, sure, it's only hair, but it's not. It's so much more than that. And I mean, obviously men lose hair, of course they do. But, you know, today we're really talking about women. How does a woman feel when she comes to you?
So I've had a lot of women come in through my door, and it takes so much courage, first of all, to make the phone call. A lot of women will say, I've been putting off this phone call for months or even years. And when they come in, they are quite vulnerable. Your hair is your main asset. It is a true saying where it's your crown and glory. It, you know, identifies you as a person. It's like putting your makeup on every morning, where we can cover up our face. There's very little that you can do if you do not look after your scalp or seek out the right treatments for your hair. It is very, very soul destroying when you lose your hair. Now, whether that's to medical reasons, to cancer, stress, COVID, menopause, alopecia, there's such a range. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It is soul destroying. You know, it is soul destroying, and it is your identity. You know,
and there's a certain level of shame there. And I mean, you've spoken to me about this before, that women have been sort of combing bits over and trying different hairstyles and all sorts, and nothing works.
Yeah, and there's a lot of gimmicky products out there. So there is a lot of, you know, and there's a lot of Instagrammers, and there's a lot of the social media where you buy the sweetie gummies, you buy this, bring back your hair, bring back your hair.
I see a lot of this.
And like, it doesn't work, you know. Sometimes some supplements do work. I have known a lot of good products that does work, but there's a lot of that gimmicky stuff that doesn't work. If you are suffering hair loss, you do need to go and get a full blood count. If you are going through the menopause is massive now with hair loss. Women, you know, seeking like HRT to help the hair loss, but a lot of women suffer in silence. A lot of women just let it be and they say, oh, it's only hair, as you say, and
Of course,
they don't.
yes.
But it's not just hair, you know. When you have got your roots are growing out and you need to see a hairdresser, like when you look in the mirror in the mornings and you've got 2 inches of grey roots, like you're going to make that
bad.
phone call,
Yes.
and you do feel terrible and you don't look yourself. But when you have hair loss, it is a completely different feeling. It is that feeling of, you know, you're losing your hair, it's thinning, and it can be very, very, a lot of women do get quite depressed with this.
They get very depressed. And of course, with the ever under pressure NHS, there's really not a lot doctors can do. I mean, we've talked about this, that women have gone eventually to their GP and their GP has just handed them a leaflet on alopecia and sort of said, that's it. You know, he's maybe done blood tests, it's shown up nothing. Quite often it doesn't show up anything. There's no real reason. And I mean, he's a GP, there's not much he can do.
Yeah, so doctors in their degree of medical, you know, they don't really look at the scalp. You know, the scalp is massive, you know, it's the follicle and that. And sometimes, you know, I say to women, do get a full blood count taken, get your ferritin levels taken, get your B12 taken and your iron, where doctors are looking for infection markers, etc., where you could be like a level under with your B12, your iron and your ferritin. So they're not looking for that. When you get your bloods taken, you're looking for infection. You're looking for something, you know, that is serious, but you're not looking for the hair loss. And this is massive, you know, to really, really, you know, look into your bloods, get your bloods, bring them to a trichologist and have them look at it to give you the right advice.
Now, when did you begin your journey with hair loss? Because you started as just like a regular hairdresser.
Yeah, so I've been hairdressing now 28 years, and maybe 10 years ago, maybe more, I had a lady come in to me and she was going through breast cancer. As a hairdresser, I was amazing at doing cuts and colours and all the styling, but I had very little knowledge in cutting wigs and hair and scalp issues. So I was in Scotland and I was training over there, and I got involved with a company called Healthcare Europe who just completely addressed hair loss and wigs. So there wasn't a massive platform here in Northern Ireland, you know. So there was, you know, I had lots of women coming in saying, oh, I got a wig of the NHS, it's not great.
Yes.
And whether, you know, we, as you've just touched there, you know, the NHS is very unresolved for finance. So, you know, they just get what they can get. And
what kind of wig do you get now from NHS?
So you know, there's a lot of different products out there, you know, where they can give synthetic hair or real hair.
And they're not great.
And sometimes they're not great. You know, wigs need cut within an inch of their life. You do need somebody that is a really good cutter in wigs to specialise in bespoke in the wig. You know, I always say, keep your client looking the same. Don't unidentify yourself. Sometimes when people is diagnosed with cancer, they have this just fight or flight mode. They need to get their hair cut short. You know, and they go in and they get the hair cut short and they go for a short wig. And I always say, no, take a picture of yourself. Keep yourself looking the same. You don't want anybody to come up to you in the street and say, God, you're sick or you look different because of the piece that you're wearing. I always say, keep it the same. So yeah, so then I really sourced all the really good products, really got into this work, and I have been doing it ever since.
So this one lady that came in, you then learnt how to cut wigs, because obviously that's a different skill set, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a different skill set. It is like cutting a piece of material because your hair's not going to grow back. If you cut that wig wrong, there's very little you can do. Yes. You know, it's like cutting out a pattern for a dress. If you cut the pattern wrong, it's not going to fit, and the same with a wig. So yeah, the lady came in to me. I had no knowledge whatsoever, and I did have to refer her on somewhere else because I had no knowledge in this. So that's how I got very much involved in it.
So you started learning.
So I started learning. I done my education with a Professor Charles Douglas Barr in Edinburgh, and I had been doing that for 3 years, and then I got into the field of trichology. And I continued to educate myself in this field of work. And over the last maybe 3 or 4 years, it has become a massive service in my salon.
Because back then, of course, you know, if you were experiencing hair loss, you just sort of wore a headscarf or something, or one of the, as you say, one of the sort of pearly fitting NHS wigs. So this was something kind of new, but obviously there would have been a bit of a taboo about wearing a wig.
Yeah, a lot of women didn't want to wear the wig. You know, they didn't fit right, it didn't look right, they didn't feel themselves, they didn't look themselves. But that has changed. There has been a complete different product range being brought out. The wigs nowadays are much more different than what they were years ago. You know, there's a different fibre, there's such a different colour range, there's such a different styling range. So there is lots out there.
So you don't obviously have to have lost your hair completely. Some people sort of thin on top. What can you do? What is it that you do to bring a woman's hair back?
So I do a lot of different services. So I do a lot of the T-part, and so they are bespoke service where if a lady is suffering from female pattern baldness.
That's just on top of
and
your
that's
scalp.
just on top, yeah. It's a T-part that'll sit and clip in. It's quite easy to use. It's more like an enhancer.
Right.
So it's not a full wig.
So that's if, for instance, whenever you're combing your hair and you begin to see that your parting's getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, so
Right.
so the parting is becoming wider and wider.
Yes.
And this is where the bespoke T-partings then come in. So these are all bespoke, measured specifically to the client. Amazing product, amazing enhancer for anybody suffering with female pattern baldness.
And how often does that need changed or fixed?
So maybe every 6 months, you can, come back in, have a look. Sometimes these products are such high-end quality that they do last maybe 12 to 18 months, depending on the care of the product.
And are these clipped in and out?
So these can be clipped in and out. They also can be glued onto the scalp if the scalp is really receding
Right.
and there's no hair there for these bespoke partings to be clipped onto. They can be glued onto the scalp, and then you come back to the salon and you have it refitted, the scalp cleaned and put back on again every 8 weeks.
Every 8 weeks. Now, I have heard some horror stories about this because in every industry, of course, there's people who are not fully trained, and I have heard some sort of bad things about these aren't they called toppers?
Yes, yeah.
And, maybe some hairdressers who would be less scrupulous, they're not doing it
Yeah,
right.
so people, you really do need to be trained.
Yes.
It's not just about, the wigs or the T-partings. It's more about the empathy of this client. This client is your client and they trust you for
Yes.
life. And they have put all their confidence in you. And I myself have seen a lot of people come to me who's had really bad services.
Right.
And it's like sometimes for some hairdressers, they're not trained. You really need to be educated in this field because you are dealing with the scalp here. And I've seen infection build up on the scalp because the topper hasn't been placed right or it hasn't been put onto the client in a correct way.
So then you're left to sort of pick up the pieces of
Yeah,
that.
you're left to pick up the pieces of that.
And the people are already sad about losing their hair, and then this happens, of course. So you don't need to be completely bald. You can just be missing, like say you're missing patches of hair. What do you do
patches
about
of
that?
hair. So we bespoke that. So if somebody has, like, I've had some people who had trauma to the scalp where they had like brain surgery or
Right.
maybe got burnt. So again, we bespoke cut out the piece. If it's just like a little simple circle, we can cut out the simple circle and place it onto
And
the
let's
scalp.
just like glue it on.
And glue it on.
And you don't notice.
And you don't notice. It's absolutely amazing.
And
yeah,
you can
the work that can be done.
go and you can go about your life. Can you like go swimming and
Yes,
stuff
you
like
can
that?
go swimming. These pieces are very wearable. They won't, a lot of people say, oh God, will this blow off if I go out in the wind?
course, there's that sort of
or if I'm out dancing, will it
Yes.
come off? No. If it's done correctly, it will not move.
Because I think people, their first instinct would be to go for extensions, but that can sometimes be damaging, cause further damage.
So I don't do the mermaid hair. I don't do the extensions. A lot of young girls and a lot
Yes.
of these people love this for weight and thickness,
Yes, of
and
course.
I find it causes traction on the scalp.
Yes.
And I do find over time it's wear and tear
Mm-hmm.
on the hair. And I am very into scalp health. It's skinification for the scalp. I'm very into looking after the scalp, so I don't really do extensions or anything that will damage the hair further.
So how do you look after your scalp?
So it's really like where we look after our skin. We cleanse, we exfoliate, we moisture. We're busy getting all the aesthetics to our skin. There's very little you can do with the scalp, We can do a lot to our skin, but when it comes to our scalp, people tend to forget that your scalp is your skin. So I always say use an exfoliator once a week on the scalp. Clean it like you would clean your face,
Really?
Yeah. So I think it's this like Irish myth, your mother would have said, oh, don't be washing your hair, you're washing all the good oils out of it,
Of course.
It's like I would say you wouldn't go 3 or 4 days without washing your face.
No.
So you really need to wash your scalp. Keep your scalp clean. Bacteria will grow on it. If you let the oil sink into your scalp, it is going to, over time, cause like itchiness, maybe cause dry patches on the scalp. So you really need to be looking after your scalp, using a really good shampoo, really good cleanser, staying away from all the sulfates and parabens, and use an exfoliator once a week to get rid of all that dead excess of the scalp to allow the follicle to come through. So your scalp goes through 3 phases of anagen, cahagen and telogen, and we do lose up to maybe 50, 100 hairs every time like we wash our hair, and that's okay. But normal, if you are seeing more than that, you do need to seek help.
So how many hairs should you be losing normally?
So maybe I would always say maybe like 50 to 100 hairs. Yeah,
right.
You can
and
say.
anything more than
and
that.
that's okay. More than that, if you find like a lot more coming out than that, you do need to keep an eye on this.
Because some people do get little patches. I mean, for instance, I found a little patch, gosh, about a year ago. There was a little patch at the front. It just vanished, but then it grew back.
Yeah. So sometimes it's
Why?
because a lot of this is autoimmune. If you are stressed or some sort of trauma going on in your life, a lot of this comes out through the scalp. If you have a baby and you lose your hair, and this is because all the goodness is taken back out again, and again it's trauma to the body. If you go through any medical cancer treatments, the first thing that'll happen, the scalp will be affected. When you start your chemo or your treatment, the first thing that'll happen here, that the scalp will be affected. Also the same with menopause. The body's going through a whole change, so the scalp is also going to be affected here.
Now tell us about menopause and hair loss. That is a thing, isn't it?
Yeah, menopause is massive nowadays. Like,
we're finally talking about menopause, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it's nearly like a trendy word now to say that you're
it's well,
in the
thank
menopause.
goodness, because for years I think women suffered in silence and had their hot flushes in silence, and now we're realising that there's a whole range of things that happen to women, and one of them, to some ladies, is hair loss.
Yeah, so this again is due to the hormonal imbalance. So where we lose the collagen in our face and the elasticity and everything, we can get, as I said to you, all the treatments for that to help the youth come back into that. But this again is the scalp. The scalp's been affected. All our levels has dropped, so we're not producing enough collagen and we're not producing enough hormone imbalance to keep that hair hydrated on the scalp.
So you're working quite often with menopausal women now, aren't you?
Yeah. So I do a lot of the menopausal cafes again, working along with a lot of the local surgeries in County Down, just really reinstating to women that there is help out there and to look after the scalp. Women don't know what to do.
No, they don't.
And they're at a loss, and they are spending a fortune on products, like, because you are at such a stage in your life that you would try anything, to help this. So it's really educating women, to look after the scalp, get a good supplement. If you're finding your hair coming out more than it should be, and maybe you're not on any HRT, sometimes HRT can really help this. So it then engraves, the hormone back into the body again and helps the hair growth.
But quite often there is nothing that can be done. I mean, I know a couple of girls who have alopecia, and there doesn't seem to be any particular reason for it. The doctor's a bit sort of vague about why they've got it, so there doesn't seem to be much they can do.
So if you have alopecia, and alopecia is something that is quite autoimmune, and if you have it a long time, it's not going to come back.
That sounds quite brutal, because I think whenever ladies lose their hair through alopecia, they think, it'll grow back, but more often than not, it doesn't.
Yeah, 70% of the time it does not come back.
Right.
Which is quite soul destroying. Where then your client does have to go on a different journey here of wigs and being prepared to wear these wigs for life.
Yes, it's a sort of lifetime thing. Now, we've been talking a lot about menopause and older people, but alopecia and things like that affect younger people. You have had a lot of clients who are in their teens. Yeah, I've had a lot of young girls who's in their teens. Again, I do see this sometimes through a lot of diet. Very, very poor nutrition. A lot of my clients would have had like eating disorders, and this really, really affects the scalp. Also, a lot of trauma in their life. Yes. And it is something that is in young girls where it's very, it's very inwardly. Yes. And this is something that has been lying state in them for a long time, and it's nearly fight or flight mode with the body. Yes. And they can't express what has happened to them. So this comes out through the scalp, and it does cause alopecia. And then there's one particular girl that you've worked with. Obviously, we're not going to mention her name to protect her privacy, but I've seen pictures of her that you've posted on your social media, and she was a teenager and she'd lost her hair. She came to you for help, didn't she?
Yeah, she come to me for help, and at that time she was quite young. At the start, the hair was coming out. She was just going through her exams at school.
Yes.
And it was one of those times where she was in quite a stressful situation, and she completely lost all her hair. Now, she's absolutely stunning.
She is, yes.
And really embraces this. You know, she's a beautiful girl, and she embraces the whole alopecia. She did wear wigs for a while, but now she is just so pretty that she just gets away with it, and she just goes, about her normal day without wearing any sort of wig or any solution. She just embraces this.
But she does have wigs that you have given her.
Yeah, she does have wigs that I have given her, and at that stage was quite young. So you can imagine for somebody 16 years old going back into school with no hair, going to school for I you don't know, you try to, you don't know how they feel, and you are their source of help. And then she did wear the wigs for a while, but as she got older, you obviously then embrace it, and you realise this is my life now, and I am going to have to go through life with this. So, yeah.
And I think it is something, to note that younger girls do suffer from this as well, and there is help there. And I know, we all worry about our kids. So if you do notice, for instance, your child losing their hair, there is help they can get.
Yes, there's lots of help out there, because as I said, it's such a taboo subject. And it's such, I have so many people come into me and they haven't left the house.
And they've had their hoods up. I remember meeting a girl, I did a story, years ago, and she was in school, she was in high school, and she wore her hood up. And she didn't want to tell anybody. In fact, she didn't even want to tell her own dad, it seems daft really whenever you think about it. And I remember she said to me that at one point her daddy came over to her and just took down her hood and went, "It's okay."
Yeah.
And she had been trying to hide the fact that she had no hair from her own father. That's how deep it ran.
Yes, there's a lot of this goes on. There's a lot of this goes on with I had a lady who come in, and she had recently started to date again.
Yes.
And she had started to lose her hair.
Yes.
And she needed a topper, but she was very conscious of this. She was like, well, what if I go away for the weekend?
Yes, of course.
What if
go to the spa?
Yeah, how is this going to work? And she'd suffered so long with this.
Yes.
But when she seen, what we had to offer, what I could do for her, it was life changing.
So how does that make you feel whenever you get to change people's lives?
Yeah, it's very rewarding. There's no price can be put on this. In my career for years, when I see somebody leaving my salon and I have given them back the confidence to go back out there again, to, just feel themselves again, to get this confidence back, and to really, embrace who they were before they started to lose their hair. It's just so rewarding, Kim. Really rewarding.
I would say there's quite a few tears in your salon at times.
Yeah, it can be very emotional, because people start to open up to you, because with hair loss, there's always some sort of reason for it, whether it's stress, moving house, a divorce, a family death, a lot of people start to open up to you, when they do come in and you do go for the consultation, when you ask them, has anything ever, where is the trauma coming from? It has to be past. It's very much down to the core here.
Yes.
Then a lot of them would say, oh, nothing's happened to me. No, I'm living.
Fine.
And then once they get to sort of, put their trust in you, then they open up and you do find out the stories. And some of those stories are really traumatic.
And you become like a therapist.
Yeah, you're more than I always say I'm the therapist.
Yes.
Yeah, you do become quite close to this client, and some of them just become a friend for life because they trust you so much.
Of course. Now, life has a funny way of throwing different things at us, and you worked for years in hair loss, and then you yourself experienced hair loss. Tell us about your own journey.
Yeah, so 3 years ago, just before COVID, I had took unwell. I just thought it was COVID, and I had put on a bit of weight, but I thought that was down to drinking wine and eating pasta and the lovely sunny days we were all off. And then I had discovered that I had I had like a swelling in my right hand side, and this had become down to a benign cervical cancer in my cervix. So then I had to have a full hysterectomy.
Right.
And I was quite young. And I was.
Well, you're only in your early
40s.
I'm
40. So I was. I think. Almost my birthday. So I was 43 actually.
That's young.
Yeah. So it was quite. Yeah. So it was quite young, and I was put in here to surgical menopause, and I was completely traumatized. It was COVID. I couldn't get my surgery done through the NHS because they didn't see it as, life threatening, but I did. Yes. And I went private to Kingsbridge, and I had a full hysterectomy. Everything was taken away. I wanted to keep my ovaries. Unfortunately, they had to go, and then I was put into menopause,
right?
Which was so traumatic. And then I had noticed a massive loss in my own hair. I had lost so much of my hair, and I think this was down to the trauma, and then it was also down to the menopause then.
Of course, yes.
So, yeah, having experience of that, I know firsthand what it feels like to go through this motion of hair loss.
When did you first notice you were losing your hair?
So I first noticed I losing my hair probably about 4 weeks after the surgery. I had noticed my hair was coming out so bad. It was coming out in handfuls.
In clumps, right.
Oh, it was really, really bad. But there was a mix in the bag here because a lot of this was stress.
Yes.
I was had to close down my salon. I had took very unwell, and I then had the surgery, and there was just so much going on. I also had lost my father 3 weeks before I had my surgery. So this was completely stress related with me. And then the menopause hit, and the hair started to, come away. Like, it was really unbelievable how much hair I had lost.
And were there patches?
There was patches, there was patches at the back of my head where my hair was just really disintegrating. And then as the knowledge that I had, I was very lucky enough, to know what I needed to do here. I needed to get myself onto a good supplement, and I got myself onto a good supplement. Started to use a really good hair loss shampoo and a suppressant lotion for the scalp. This is where people go wrong. They get the product and they use it for a month or so, and that really didn't do much because they forget to use it. You know what I mean? So I always say, if you are going on this hair loss journey, you really need to stay on this product for 12 to 18 months.
Right,
Nothing
as long
works.
as that, okay.
As long as that, it's like consistency is key here.
Right.
It's like trying to lose weight. You need to be consistent.
Yes.
And you really need to look after the scalp, because when people buy the product and they buy it and they maybe stay on it for a month or two, and then they just move back over to a regular, supermarket shampoo, like, you're contraindicating all the good work that you have done. I always say it's like an antibiotic for the scalp. The suppressant lotion, you need to stay on it. You need to stay on the full course of it until you're seeing change in the scalp and on the hair.
And yes, but not everybody will see change because it's not going to work for everybody, is it?
Yeah, it's not going to work for everybody. Everybody has a different journey, but you do need to be looking after your scalp. If you're suffering from hair loss, you need to be looking after it. If you had eczema on your face, or
you wouldn't just leave it.
You wouldn't leave it. You would go and get an antibiotic. You'd go and get hydrocortisone. You'd go and get something to clear this up, and it's the same with the scalp.
So how did you feel then whenever your hair was falling out?
Yeah, I love my hair, and I always had lots and lots of hair.
You have beautiful hair. You're just sitting here. You've got long sort of raven locks right down her back. She's got really beautiful hair.
So I was, I actually, it was one of the things, that I was like, oh my God, my hair. And you're dealing with these women every day of the week, and then when it happens to you yourself and your hair starting to come away, especially around the front, I lost so much hair around my whole receding line. I actually took it really, really bad, and it really, really, I actually suffered with that. I was like, oh my God, my
mentally,
hair. Mentally, I suffered with it because I love my hair. I've worked with my hair all my life, and yeah, I did. That really did play a major factor in that. Even though I was getting over the surgery, and I'd lost my father, and all the stress of that. And sometimes I was saying, "Oh, Bridgeen, cop yourself on. Cop yourself on. There's more than this. You're okay.
Yes.
You've come out of surgery, and you're fine. There's not a bother on you. But you know, that didn't really help Mathish when my hair was coming away. But thank God, you know, I have looked after it and it has started to come back again and it's doing really well.
And did you ever have to use a wig or toppers?
No, I didn't have to use a wig. Sometimes I would have put the topper on for enhancement.
Yes.
If I was going out, I was going to a wedding, I would have put the topper on to give it that bit of volume.
Yes, but you didn't actually have to do
No.
like the treatments yourself.
No,
right?
no.
That really must have given you like a new appreciation for your clients and what they're going through.
Yeah, and then that's when I started to really, really get into the hair loss through menopause.
Yes.
You know, I was like, I'm going through this myself. Other women must be suffering with this. And I really, really want to get into this. So I've been working with, I had done a lot of education with Mark Blake. He's based in London and he's an amazing guy where it comes to the scalp, and got myself really educated and still educating myself. Went back to do a trichology degree just to find out more where the help is and where all the underlying issues is here with menopause.
So this really has been a journey for you. It's been your own journey as well as the journey that you take these other ladies on. And I hear recently that you won a very big award.
Yeah, so just last week I have won Ireland's Hair Loss Restoration Clinic of the Year. Mm-hmm. So absolutely delighted with that.
Yes.
Because it's something that I want to really encourage other stylists to do. You know,
Yes.
we're all amazing at cutting and colouring.
Yes.
When somebody comes into your salon and they're suffering from hair loss, and I know myself as a stylist, you hadn't got the education. You don't
No.
learn that when you're training school
of course not.
for hairdressing. So at the minute, myself and another lady, Aileen Maher, she's a skin and scalp specialist. She's based in Kildare. Aileen is very renowned for her work. We have recently just done, we are in the middle of doing a UK roadshow.
Wow.
So we have been in Edinburgh, Manchester, London, Belfast, Dublin and Cork is the next dates. And it's just going into salons and helping them to get the knowledge of this work.
This is great because, of course, you know, even whenever you and I first met all those years ago, there really was nothing being done and women had to just suffer in silence. It's so good now that something is being done. And what would your message be to anybody listening to this who is suffering from hair loss and who just doesn't know what to do?
Reach out. You know, we all are very good at just, as you say, just letting it be, you know, it'll come back. It's not too bad. Like people comes into me and they say, I haven't the same head of hair I had 5 or 10 years ago than I have now. Like my hair used to be so thick, Bridgeen. I used to have amazing hair. But you don't have the same skin that you have 5 or 10 years ago.
No, of course
you know?
not. Yeah.
Everything ages here, but hair loss is completely different, Kim. You know, reach out, speak to your stylist. If your stylist can't help you, you know, let them refer you to somewhere else. Even get your bloods taken. You know, your bloods is very important. You could be low in B12. You could have underlying thyroid issues, which is another one. Yeah. And you could be perimenopausal or menopausal. So do seek the help. Don't let it be. You know, go out there and start looking after your scalp and try to encourage. You know, this can be reversed.
Yes.
You know, it can be reversed due to the right products and the right help.
And if it can't be, then people can reach out to you. Now, you're based in the beautiful Sleeve Donard Hotel down in Newcastle. So how could people get in touch with you? So people can get in touch with me. I have a website, so it's Bridgeen King Hair Loss Clinic. It is a private consultation. Yes. And it is a private clinic where you can come in and we can look at your scalp under. It's myself that does it. And I can look at your scalp underneath the camera and give you the right advice. And there won't be anybody looking or anything. No, it's a private consultation. Right. It is just a one-on-one, and this also is it's a very dignified consultation. Yes, you know? So there is help there. Yeah, there is help there. There is a lot of these clinics about now. So yeah, do reach out. Yes. Thank you very much, Bridgeen, for coming in and talking to us about hair loss. You've given us an awful lot to think about. And again, if anybody is struggling, do reach out. She's always here and she is an expert. She's known as Ireland's Queen of Hair Loss. A special thank you to my dear friend and our guest, Bridgeen King, the hair loss expert, for joining us. And thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode as much as we have, please leave a review. Make sure to follow It's For Woman on social media. I've been your host, Kim Kelly, and this has been the Driven by It's For Woman podcast.